Hello, my name is Helen Dandy and I'm the clinical lead for Aspire. Today I would like to demonstrate to you how to put on personal protective equipment. This is often referred to as donning PPE. I'd then like to show you how to take off personal protective equipment, and this is known as doffing PPE. Today's demonstration that I'm showing you is taken from guidance published by Public Health England, and these easy to read versions should be available for you to read in your place of work. So, just before we move on to starting the demonstration, I'd like you to take a moment to think about why you may be required to wear PPE in the workplace. Well, the clue is in the question. As the name suggests, personal protective equipment will protect your own health and prevent the transmission of infections to the vulnerable people you're in contact during your working day. Infections can be transmitted in blood, bodily fluids and secretions. Now think about your working day and when you are likely to come into contact with these products. Well, it may be when supporting an individual to get in and out of bed. Perhaps you're supporting them with a bath or a shower in the morning. Personal grooming, you may be helping them to clean the teeth. They may be required to go to the toilet. Perhaps you'll be supporting somebody at meal times around their eating and drinking, or you'll be administering medication. A lot of our individuals can sometimes become upset and distressed, and at these times you will need to support them. And of course there'll be times in their lives where they're unwell and they need our support. In all these situations you're going to be working closely with individuals, and there's a possibility that you may come into contact with infections. When used correctly, your personal protective equipment will provide a barrier and help to prevent the transmission of these infections. This is what is known as infection control. PPE, of course, is only one part of infection control, and more information on this topic can be found in a separate video that we've produced. Now, we're almost ready to start donning our PPE, but before we start, please take a moment to check the following. It's important that you're hydrated before putting on any PPE. It can become very hot wearing a mask, a gown, gloves, even possibly you may be wearing goggles, and you're probably going to be working in a setting where you're in close proximity to individuals and it already may be a warm environment. Perhaps you're in a bathroom assisting an individual. You may be working with another colleague. You may be using moving and handling equipment. So you can very quickly become warm and possibly overheated. I would always recommend taking regular breaks when using PPE. Make sure that you get a drink and then return to your work. Obviously, if you do take a break, you will be required to remove all of your PPE, and then when you return to work to do the next task, you would need to put on fresh PPE. The next thing to look at is, does your hair need tying back? And for me, yes, definitely it does. Hair can become tangled in equipment when we're working with individuals. One of the other things to consider as well is people are curious and they will want to touch your hair, and at times people can possibly pull at your hair. The other thing is perhaps when you're supporting somebody to eat, if you've got long hair, it's going to drop into the food. Not very pleasant for the person. And one of the things, most important things, is if your hair is loose, the temptation is to move it away from your face. This means that you may touch your eyes, your nose or your mouth, and these are all areas where infections can enter your body. Your hands could be contaminated. So always tie your hair back. The other thing that you must do as well is remove any jewellery that you're wearing. Again, if you've got a necklace on, it could be become trapped. An individual may choose to pull at it. It'll get in the way of what you're doing. Jewellery, wrist watches, they can all harbour germs. They need to be removed. One of the really important things as well with jewellery is that we do have individuals that have very fragile skin, and its skin tears can happen very easily. They can be very painful for individuals, and you can get some nasty infections. So jewellery really does need to be removed. The exception to this would be a wedding band. It's okay to leave your wedding band on. One of the things that isn't mentioned in public health guidance is around fingernails, but it's something that I feel is important for us to discuss. Your nails need to be kept short, they should be clean, no nail varnish, and we would discourage false nails. Again, nails can injure individuals. It's so easy to scratch somebody's skin, and skin can be very fragile. It's like tissue paper. So always keep your nails short. So the final thing we need to do before we start the process of putting on our PPE is check the equipment that we're going to be using. The PPE that you'll be required to use in your workplace will be a disposable plastic apron, a water repellent disposable mask. You may be required in some situations to wear goggles, or in a lot of our establishments we have visors. You'd also need disposable gloves and alcohol gel. So we're now ready to start the process of putting on, or donning as it's known, our PPE. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that our hands are clean. So I'm going to demonstrate how to wash your hands. Right, I'm now going to show you the technique for washing your hands. The process that I'm going to use today comes from the following guidance, which has been produced by the National Patient Safety Agency. Always refer to guidance. It should be available in your workplace, as there are several steps to the hand washing process, and until you become familiar with it, it's easy to miss one of the steps. So let's start. Like I say, if you're unsure, refer to the guidance. Always make sure to wash your wrists as well. place the paper towel in the bin. If you need to turn the taps off and they haven't got the long handles where you can use your elbows, your hands are now clean, you don't want to contaminate them again. So take some paper hand towel and carefully turn the taps off and place the paper hand towel in the bin. So we're now ready to start donning our PPE equipment. Right, so our hands are clean and we're now ready to start donning our PPE. So remember to follow the guidance that I mentioned from Public Health England. It's always good to have this up in your workplace in the areas that you're going to be putting on your PPE. If you're anything like me, my memory's not the greatest, so it's easy to forget stages, and it is extremely important that PPE is put on in the right order. So let's start. The first thing we need to do is put on our disposable apron. So we simply need to pop this over our head and make sure that it's tied securely at the waist. Okay. The next thing we need to do is put on our face mask. So we pick up our face mask, our hands are clean. The blue side goes on the outside and you'll be able to feel the mask has a metal strip, and the metal strip should be at the top. Most of the masks we use now have loops. So you need to take hold of the loops and place them behind your ears. Some people do like to cross the loops because it gives a more secure fit to the mask. The preference is yours. The next thing we need to do is make sure that the mask fits snugly over the nose. So with both hands, you'll feel the metal strip bends. So just get a nice secure fit. When you've done that, I like to just pinch with my nose just to make sure. Well, pinch with my fingers, not my nose. The final bit is to just lift your chin slightly, get the bottom bit of the mask and make sure that it's pulled down over your mouth. So you should now have a secure seal. Your mouth is completely covered by the mask. It's important once you've put your mask on that you don't touch it. The next thing we're going to do, if required, would be to put on our goggles. To put on goggles, you would need to put your head forward and then put the elastic strap around the back. I'll just demonstrate for you. There we go. Now our goggles are in place. I know we haven't been using these a lot. The preference has been to wear the visors. Goggles are very good because they will create a good seal, and particularly when you're supporting an individual who has perhaps got a strong cough or you feel may vomit. Some of our individuals can spit for various reasons. Goggles are going to protect your eyes and stop any secretions going near your eyes. Finally, we're going to put on our gloves. Make sure that you get the gloves that are the correct size for you. So for me, I usually wear a medium glove, but these will vary dependent on the manufacturer. Make sure they're pulled up properly above your wrist. So there we go. We're now wearing all the PPE that is required. The next process I'm going to show you is how to take off your personal protective equipment. As you know, this is referred to as doffing PPE. Doffing PPE is quite a lengthy process. It needs to be done in a very methodical way, and care needs to be taken, because now you're likely to have secretions, bodily fluids, even possibly blood on some of the equipment that you're wearing. So it's really important to make sure that you don't become contaminated with any of those body products. So again, always refer to your guidance. Taking off PPE is quite a lengthy process, and it's very easy to forget a stage. So I would always advise following the guidance. So the first thing we need to do is remove our gloves. Remember, as I said, these are going to be contaminated, they're no longer clean. So always bear that in mind. In the guidance, the advice is that you use your dominant hand. So for me, my dominant hand is my left hand. I'm left-handed. And I put out my other hand, I take hold of the glove, and I pull it off. And I then put that into my dominant hand. I then need to take this glove off. So the safest way of doing this is going to be to insert my finger underneath the glove, because the inside of the glove is going to be clean. I don't want to be touching the outside of the glove with this hand. So put your finger inside the glove, pull it down, and then we empty that, put that in our bin. Yeah? The advice is then that you would need to clean your hands, because there's a chance that when you did take the gloves off, there could have been some secretions got onto your hands. They could have become contaminated. So you need to clean your hands, and this can be done with alcohol rub. And they do say, when using the alcohol rub, to follow the same process that you use when washing your hands. So you do need to be thorough. And I've probably applied a bit too much gel there, but more is better than less. So the next thing we need to do now is remove our apron. One stage of this guidance has changed slightly recently, so I'm going to take you through the update that we were given. Unfortunately, this isn't shown on this guidance from Public Health England, so we'll see how we go. So the first bit you need to do is back of your apron. You need to pull that down and let it fall at the waist. That means that this part of your apron is now clean because it's been against your body, so you can touch that. The advice now is to grab the apron, the clean part, and if you pull it away from your body, that will ensure that the ties around your waist come away. You then roll the apron up, and again you dispose of that in the bin. Okay, as you can see, I'm constantly referring back to the guidance just to make sure that I'm doing it in the right sequence, because I don't want to risk contaminating myself. The next thing we would need to do is remove our goggles. So we need to do this by putting our head forward, undoing the strap. Don't touch any of the plastic because that will be contaminated. These goggles can be used again, so what we need to do is place them to one side. Ideally, we should probably put them on a piece of paper towel, and they can be cleaned later. The goggles should always be cleaned in between each use, and we clean them with a detergent wipe and then an alcohol wipe, which is at least 70% in alcohol. We then need to clean our hands again, because there's a chance that the apron or the goggles, we could have contaminated our hands when we remove them. So again, the alcohol rub. So my hands are clean now, so the last thing I need to do is remove my mask. So your mask would always be removed once you've finished all of your clinical work with individuals. That is the advice, it's the last thing you remove. And your mask, remember the front is contaminated. It may have all sorts of secretions on it. We don't want to be getting any infections, so don't touch the front of your mask. Get hold of the loops. And we need to pop it in the bin. What we then need to do as a final step is wash our hands, and we need to wash them thoroughly with soap and water. That then ends the process of taking off personal protective equipment, or as we're familiar with it now, doffing PPE. So the final part of today's demonstration, I just wanted to go through with you how to dispose of the PPE that you've used. Current advice is that the PPE should be put in a bin, which you don't need to touch, which we've done, which has a liner in it. When you've finished all of your doffing of your PPE, take that bag out of the bin, put a knot in it. It should then be put into another bag, and that should be knotted, so it's double bagged, it's double sealed. You would then need to place a label on the bag, and the label should say the date that the waste was collected, the time, and who was the person that dealt with the waste. That waste should then be stored in a separate place for at least 72 hours before being put in the bin with other general waste. This guidance has been put in place at the moment because of the current coronavirus pandemic that we have, so we need to be following this guidance. So that ends today's demonstration on the donning and doffing of PPE. I hope you found it beneficial. If you do have any questions or queries, or perhaps you'd like to give me some feedback, please get in touch. I'd like to hear from you. And all that's left for me to say is, please take care everyone, and make sure that you stay safe.